Welcome back to Racing Rundown, and folks, it looks like we're going to be setting a new tradition here on Racing Rundown with our Kentucky Derby profiles. This is the second year in a row that I will be producing a Kentucky Derby profile, or in this case, two Kentucky Derby profiles, on Oaks Day. Of course, we had chaos unfold yesterday with several horses scratched from the Kentucky Derby, and we have now dropped to the point where there will only be 19 horses. However, this profile is coming out, this profile is about a horse that is not in the Kentucky Derby, that did not draw into the Kentucky Derby as a result of scratches. This is, of course, Raise Cain, as you can tell by the title. Now, I have to apologize with this one coming as late as it has. I just put this one off initially because we didn't know who the jockey was going to be, and then I just kept putting it off this week as there was more important things to do on the podcast. So we will get into Raise Cain. He is trained by Ben Colebrook, one-time trainer of Nixco, and will be ridden by Gerardo Corrales, who had a very, very strong meet at Turfway Park. This will be a first Kentucky Derby ride for him. And Raise Cain doesn't really have a whole lot of positives going for him. You look at his record, not really sensational. He does have, obviously, the win in the Gotham, but in addition to that, he did place in the Gunrunner Stakes. And we'll get into the pros and cons in a minute, but broke his maiden on October 9th at Keeneland, and then ran a couple of solid races. Third in the Bowman Mill, which was a sprint stake at Keeneland, and then I mentioned that runner-up in the Gotham. But he went to Turfway, ran pretty bad in the Leonis. Maybe you can forgive him for that effort because it was a synthetic surface, and it probably seems based on that he didn't really take to that too well. And then he went up to Aqueduct, and he won the Gotham by 7 lengths officially, although I will mention that there was a loose horse in that race, and he was only about 2 lengths clear of the loose horse there, but he was still 7.5 lengths clear of the rest of the field and did win the Gotham convincingly, and then came back with a 5th place finish in the Bluegrass, which was a rather deep race. There are 3 Kentucky Derby starters in it, and then Blazing Sevens, who was 3rd in there, did qualify for the Kentucky Derby, but Chad Brown decided not to run him. And Raise Cain didn't really run all that bad in the Bluegrass, but there's a couple of things, look at the speed figures, they're just kind of average for the rest of the field. We will get to the pros, though. That 7-length victory in the Gotham, I did mention that was a little bit deceiving, but officially 7 lengths, and still winning a stakes race by open lengths, and it was open lengths. He, as I said, 2.5, 3 lengths clear of the loose horse. Certainly not a terrible thing. He also checked bad in the Gotham and still was able to win it, so that was another reason why the Gotham was a good race. And he had a legitimate excuse in the Bluegrass, which I already mentioned was a deep race, and he's a deep closer, and the Bluegrass didn't really have any early pace signed on into it, so it was never going to be a race that was good for closers. Blazing Sevens, Sun Thunder, and Raise Cain were 7th, 8th, and 9th at first call, and they were 3rd, 4th, and 5th, just under 6 lengths behind Tabatrice and Verifying. Now, Tabatrice obviously one of the favorites in the Kentucky Derby, and as I have mentioned on 2 occasions now, the Bluegrass was a deep race. So, he had a legitimate excuse there. There wasn't the pace for him. However, that's where a con comes in for him. He's extraordinarily pace dependent. And now, with Cyclone Mischief drawing into the Kentucky Derby, there is going to be a little bit more pace, but for a horse that's as pace-dependent as him, I don't really think that it's going to benefit him too much. I said it a lot last year, 2021 was 2022, was a Georgia barbecue. There's not going to be any Georgia barbecues this year, at least not as we're projecting, despite Cyclone Mischief drawing in. He also lacks a win in a race at 2 turns. Now, that's not a deal breaker because Rich Strike lacked a win in a race at 2 turns, but that's where I'm also going to group in. He won the Gotham, and there's only been one Kentucky Derby winner that's won the Gotham, and of course that was Secretariat. But the Gotham has historically not been a great race to prep for the Kentucky Derby in. What winners have gone on to run in the Kentucky Derby have not run well as of late. You'd have to go back quite a bit to find a horse that ran in the Gotham that ran at least okay in the Kentucky Derby, and that horse, the last horse to run well in the Kentucky Derby after a Gotham run, or Gotham win, I should say, was Talkin' Man, who was, I believe Talkin' Man was 4th or 5th in the 1995 Kentucky Derby, and I should correct myself, actually, I was thinking of someone else. Talkin' Man did not run well in the Kentucky Derby, so completely scrapped that statistic. You'd have to go back even further to find that. So, historically, not a great prep to Gotham, but really the big thing is he's pace dependent, and this is not going to be a Kentucky Derby where they're going to burn things down early. I wasn't very kind to Raise Cain on the profile that we did, or on the Kentucky Derby preview that we did earlier this week. I think that this is objectively the least talented horse in this year's Kentucky Derby. Again, his one stakes win came in a race that was kind of messed up by the fact that a horse got loose in there and really just messed with the fractions almost entirely and blew it up enough where the top 3 finishers in that race, Raise Cain was 11th at first call, General Baker was 12th at first call, and Slip Mahoney was last at first call. So that's where they finished Raise Cain, Slip Mahoney, General Baker. So really not a lot of depth from the Gotham. It was just a race that was purely undone by pace dynamics. However, if you are forecasting that they're going to burn it down this year in the Kentucky Derby, which again, I'm not, Raise Cain is not going to be a rich strike horse. I'm not going to get crazy and say Raise Cain's going to do rich strike or anything like that. But if you are forecasting that, he's going to be a big long shot, might be worth a play. But again, I have no real positive things to say about him other than, the fact that he did have a legitimate excuse in the Bluegrass that you can kind of work around, and then checked pretty bad while still winning the Gotham. So with that being said, that's going to be it for this profile. I will have one more. That will be a Cyclone Mischief profile, and that will be it for the Kentucky Derby profile. So be sure to check that out, and also check out everything that we've done over the course of the past couple of weeks for the Kentucky Derby, our Kentucky Oaks preview, and then also our updated picks video to reflect the information of the scratches. We'll see you next time.